Welcome to the Connected Mom Podcast, where we have real conversations that help you connect more deeply with God, more empathetically with your fellow moms, and more intentionally with your child. I am Becky Harling, and I am super excited today about the conversation we're going to have. Kathy Lip is our guest today. She is a Publisher Weekly's best-selling author. I love her books, by the way. She has written The Accidental Homesteader, Clutter Free. Hey, if you don't have Clutter Free, go out and buy it today. The Husband Project, which I haven't read, but sounds amazingly interesting. And today we're talking to her about her book, Sabbath Soup. Now, a lot of companies are offering their people sabbaticals. They're realizing that people can't work 24/7. They need a place of rest. The Bible actually teaches the concept of Sabbath. And yet I can hear what you're thinking. Those of you that have kids in the home, you're thinking Sabbath is impossible. Are these women on crack? No, we are not. And so we're going to help you find ways to find Sabbath rest. So welcome, Kathy.
Becky, thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here with you and having this conversation.
You are delightful. You're one of my
Oh,
favorites.
back
So,
at you, friend.
okay, Sabbath. I had one young mom tell me, hey, Sabbath rest in our house means my husband and I lock ourselves in the bedroom. We tell our four kids, you can have as much screens as you want, just leave us alone. And I don't know that that's really the biblical concept. What do you think?
I want to give that mom as much grace as possible because haven't we all been there at one point or another?
Oh, yes, we have.
And if you haven't, I don't know that you and I would have much to talk about. But I will say that could feel defeating. That could feel like it sounds like maybe she doesn't love that that's the default. And so maybe there are a couple of gentle things that we could suggest that might improve her time. But the last thing I'm going to do is judge a mom in the trenches, right? We're not here to do that,
Amen.
right? Yes,
No,
absolutely.
she sounds like she really needs a vacation in Mexico.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Here's what I love that they are saying, they are recognizing what God has said. We need a break. We need a break. And I've, we did not have tablets when my kids were little, but we had Nickelodeon. We had, anywhere from Nickelodeon to Adventures in Odyssey, like we had all of those, we employed all the tools. So I get it.
Oh, yeah. I did too. I was a pastor's wife, right? Sunday morning was wild in our house. My husband would go to the church at 6 a.m. and I would set the TV channel. I think it was on PBS, Mr. Rogers and all that stuff, and say, you can watch it as long as you want while I get dressed. Don't change the
Yeah,
channel.
absolutely. Every generation of parents is doing the best they can. I don't know a parent who
Yes.
isn't. And so to be
Yes.
able to say, hey, we recognize we need this rest, but we don't know how to do it, we can help with that.
That's right. Kathy, this is interesting. Or I didn't plan to bring it up, but I am. I read an article the other day that says that the CDC has now come out with a new study that says parenting is hazardous to your health. And so I was joking with my kids, and they're like, that is spot on, right? Because there are times where it is.
It's so true. And I don't know that we needed a CDC study to tell us that, but we needed it to validate us, right?
Yes, yes. And we need suggestions because we all love being parents. We love being moms. Some of us long to be moms from the moment we were married, and we love our kids, but we have to figure out this whole concept of rest and self care. So, how does your book help us do that, Kathy?
It was so interesting today, Becky. I was, scrolling on the social media as we do, and there was this article, this backlash against self-care, saying that it's not biblical, that it's too self-focused, and going on. And I'm like, you know what? I haven't met those women. I'm sure that they exist. I'm sure there are extremes. The women I know are the ones who are caring for so many people. I we are of course in this sandwich generation where I have adult kids, I have aging parents, we're taking care of all that. Before that, it was in the trenches with the teenagers and
Yep.
the launching the young adults. And so I think the first step is to recognize that we were not built for 24/7. That Sabbath doesn't have to be lounging in bed, but Sabbath needs to represent a difference in a routine. It's to break those rhythms we have during the week, to recognize that God has created us for work, God has created us for connection, and God has created us for rest. And rest can feel like the most stressful part of all of that. And so to say, is there a way that we can do something different in our lives that symbolizes what, we see in creation? On the seventh day God rested, and that's what it is to represent to us. So what's that difference? What's that break in routine? And I think about people like you who were in, who had loved ones in ministry or who are in ministry. And Sunday is the least restful day of the year. So we have to figure out, what does that look like? Does it look like Friday night to Saturday night? Does it look like Sunday night to Monday night? I don't know what it looks like, but I think the first step is to say, hey, I need this. And the second step is to sit down and say, how can I plan for this?
That is so good. And I think to those who are saying self care isn't biblical, you would have to go back to the Gospels and read about Jesus all over again, because Jesus took naps. Jesus went to weddings and had fun at parties. Jesus withdrew for time alone with the Father. And I think I feel for today's moms, because I think they're being fed this message: you are limitless. You can do it all. But that's not godly, because God has designed us with limits and to live within those limits and embrace them.
Yeah, we can do it all. We just, I love this phrase. We can do it all. We just can't do it all at the same time. When Roger and I blended our family, we, fortunately, and I know this is not everybody's circumstances, Roger made enough money that we could make it. Now, we were living in Silicon Valley, the most expensive place like on the planet to live. And so it wasn't great, right? We didn't get to do everything we wanted to, but we did feel like for the first couple years of our blended family, it was really important for me to stay home for that time. It was for a time. And
A
as
season.
right, as a single mom, I didn't have that choice. I needed to go and earn an income, but these were all seasons for a time. And so when we declare one way is better than the other, or I can do it all, or I can't, like, we those proclamations don't work because the seasons change. And so I think you're absolutely right that we have to get rid of this lie that we can do it all or we're supposed to be able to do it all.
I think there's pressure on moms today that it has to, to your point, that it has to look a certain way. Well, I know moms who are working who are living within their limits. I know moms who are not working. I know moms who are homeschooling. I know moms who are doing a hybrid. I know motherhood looks different. It looks different in every season. It looks different in every culture. But in that journey of motherhood, there has to be some rest. There has to be some places where we recover our souls and where we find rest, right? So, how do we find that rest, Kath?
So I think the first thing to do is to say, I want that. I need that. And to not throw up our hands and say it's impossible. So here's the book Sabbath Soup, that I wrote is really about how do we be gentler with ourselves? How do we be gentler with saying, this is what I need? So, what I was really experiencing, and this is going back to when my kids were teenagers and we were in this blended family, and we had 13, 14, 15, and 17, and none of them were fans of the situation. Like, we were figuring it out. But I really figured out a way that at the minimum, that on Sunday, I was not spending all my time in the kitchen because I knew these people still needed to be fed. We still needed to make sure that, lunch and dinner were on the table. We didn't have the money at the time to be eating out. We just did not. And I have no problem with eating out. So with me, it started with, okay, when I go to Costco, I'm going to get that rotisserie chicken and we're going to eat that on Saturday night. And I'm going to buy the two things of soup and we're going to eat those after church on Sunday. And then, Sunday night we're going to do something simple like, we're just going to I'm gonna buy the ingredients for a taco bar and everybody can make their own. So it was really like I didn't have a bunch of time to be cooking because at that point, I was at home full time, but I was also doing ministry. Like there was just a lot going on. But I just needed to plan ahead so that Sunday I wasn't in the kitchen the whole time. And by the way, let me just state up front, like my husband is great about coming alongside and like cooking. He's not the cook of the family, but he is the chief dishwasher of the family. Like
Amen to that.
yes, I have a partner in all things, but when he was out working and I was at home, most of this stuff fell to me. And it was very easy for me to get into the kitchen and feel like I'm just here all day. Like I am here all day. And I had to break that feeling so that one, I was not resentful. Two, I got some rest and Roger didn't feel guilty about wanting rest because he needed rest too. We all did.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I think Sabbath rest does look different for different people. As you mentioned, for those of you that are listening, that maybe your husband is a pastor or you're a pastor, Sundays are anything but restful, right? And so figure out ways where you can recover your soul, maybe on Monday or maybe Saturday or maybe Friday, but just choose some time where you can relax and rest a little bit because otherwise you are going to burn out, right?
For me, that is all about thinking ahead because life is coming whether
Ready or
plan
not.
for it or not. Yes, exactly. And what you were talking about, all those different kinds of mothering that are going on, can we all just agree everybody's working at capacity? If you're work if you're working full time and raising kids, you're at capacity. If you're staying at home, you're at capacity. Like all of these things are at capacity. And I was a single mom, I was at capacity. Like there was nothing more I could do. We all are making these different trade-offs. And so like when I was at home, some of my trade-offs were, okay, we're going to buy the chicken instead of making the chicken. We're going to buy the soup instead of making the soup. Now that I have a little bit more bandwidth, I don't have four extra human beings who are relying on me all the time. I can I can cook for a week on a Saturday morning or on a Friday morning. But that wasn't really possible when, I had kids at home. Now, what changed for me is that as my kids got a little bit older and my daughters moved out, my sons moved out, they're like, It's really expensive to eat out." And we're like, yeah, that's why your dad and I were so mean all the time. Like, no, we can't go to McDonald's. No, we can't go to In-N-Out. No, we have to go home and eat the food that's already bought, right? So, but when they would move out, they're like, I I need to cook too. Like I need to do one son and two daughters were into cooking. One son will not cook until Jesus comes back. That's just who he is. So we would all cook together and we would prep meals and they would take them to their respective apartments. And we got into this rhythm of saying what we're doing here on this Friday or Saturday of cooking ahead is we're taking care of our future selves. My Friday Kathy is taking care of Sunday Kathy, who really needs a break. And I didn't want to come home on Sunday to a bunch of ingredients. I wanted to come home to some meals. And so that's what this whole concept is about.
I love that. Our family, we do Sunday dinner. We have done it for years. It's really right after church, so our adult kids come, a lot of our grandkids come, and for me to recover my soul, we went to paper plates on Sunday. So there's no dishes, and so I can throw everything in the crock pot. It's very easy. I put it out. Everybody eats what they want. They all feed their kids, and it's the idea of being together on Sunday, and hearing their hearts and, connecting with the grandkids, but it's not meant to be like China and all that kind of stuff because that just doesn't fly.
You're not cooking to impress, you're cooking to feed and connect. And, my situation's a little different. We live in the mountains. Like, for our closest friends, our closest neighbors to come, it takes about 45 minutes. And so what we're doing now, we do have neighbors up here on our mountain. And when I'm cooking with them in mind. Like, I have a neighbor, I take him food every single week because if I didn't, he would live on Lunchables and crackers. I he's
Oh, I love that, Kathy.
Yeah, and we go see my mom every week. She's 80. She is perfectly capable of cooking for herself, but she said the hardest thing to do is to cook for one person. So, whatever I'm cooking for me and Roger, I'm packaging that up. I stop at Paul's on our way to town, drop off some food. He's a volunteer firefighter up here. He takes care of us, we take care of him, and then I bring some food to my mom, and it's very gentle and it's very informal, but it's a way of connecting with my people that I'm not in community with every single day, So that's special for us.
I love that. I am all about connection, and
Mm.
actually this is called the Connect a Mom podcast, and
Yes.
we need to be connecting with our neighbors, with our
Mhm.
friends, with our family, and food is a great way to do that. So
Such a great way.
that's incredible. Now, what do you say to the mom who really hates cooking?
There are a couple of things I would say. Is I think soup is the easiest, gentlest thing to cook. It's very hard to mess up. You get to taste it along the way and add a little something if you need to. Or, if you're like, I just don't cook, then I would I love the Costco plan, or for me, it's the Sam's plan. And if you don't have those, the Walmart plan, where you go and you buy the rotisserie chicken. And
Yeah.
you say, our first meal, we're just gonna, eat the chicken. The second meal, we're gonna, strip that chicken meat off of there and throw it into a soup. The third meal, I'm just gonna make a chicken salad. Like it's cooking 101. It's more gathering than it is cooking. I think about this, we call them loop meals, leftovers on purpose. So so whatever I'm eating on Saturday night, that's our meal for Monday night too. I'm just gonna when I was a mom at home, I was either cooking 2 chickens or I was buying 2 chickens because we had teenagers. They would eat down to the kitchen table. So to say, just to do a little forethought, a little planning to say, and we actually in the book have a no cook week where you're just
Oh, I
putting
love
together.
that.
Yeah, because don't we all need that, right?
Yes.
And we need some low energy things where you're gathering meals and sides. You're not actually cooking. I Before a book deadline, and Becky, I know you know what it's like before a book deadline. I actually go to it's a chain Mexican restaurant. It's like a Chipotle, but just kind of a little different. And they have like a family platter that is like $40. I buy one of those the last 3 days of my book deadline, and I'm like, that's our food. It has the tortilla, it has
Yes.
the chicken, it
Yes.
has the beans, and it's just like we can eat off of that. You can make tacos, you can make soup out of it, but it doesn't take a lot of cooking. And so for me, that's a great way of doing it. Check into family meals from restaurants because you can eat off of those for a few days if you're not a cook.
And so much of this is just about pre-planning.
It really is to say, if my goal is to take 24 hours off, What do I need to do to get there? And for me, it's usually cooking ahead, but for you, it can be gathering ahead. It can be, hey, you know what? We're going to go out to dinner on Sunday night and we're going to enjoy ourselves. I love what you do, putting the crock pot out and saying, this is the one night of the week. We are not doing dishes. We are not, this is the one pot meal. And I love a good one pot meal. I also love a good buffet meal where it's like we were talking about the tacos or an ice cream sundae bar, anything you can do ahead. Another cheat I love is like last night we had campers who were staying with us and it was a crazy busy day. And I'm like, Roger, can we just barbecue? And as long as I say, this is what I want to barbecue, he has no problem. So we had this grilled zucchini and we had Italian sauce. It was wonderful. And I just made a peach crisp and some ice cream. And they all said this was the best meal they had had in weeks. And it was so simple. People want to be loved through food.
That's an important statement. They really do. They wanna be loved through food. Our son is an amazing cook. Some of my daughters don't like to cook. I have one daughter who loves to cook and one son who loves to cook, and our son, he always says, "The way I love people is by cooking for them," and he'll come up with all this and lay it out, and I think there are ways that you can make Sunday dinner pretty simple, like even like you said, like or your Sabbath dinner, you could grill and then buy a veggie tray, right? And just put that out and some a fruit tray and it's perfectly healthy, but all the ingredients are there and you didn't have to slave all day.
Becky, it's so important to me. Like in this book, there are a million recipes. It's not just soup. It's like, but what's important, what I think what I was trying to do with this is uh, the meal plans to say, I don't care if you buy the Costco ribs or make them yourself, just feed your people. Just feed your people. That's all we need. And so it's just sometimes when I sit down to plan my dinners, I can't remember anything I've ever made my entire life. And so this is just ideas and things that it's like, oh, that would be easy to do. We could pull this together. And I love that you have a couple of kids who love to cook. Bring them into this. We have gone to, like, for our holiday celebrations, what we've done is we assign meals, and my committed non-cooking son, his job is to take care of garbage and clearing the table and dishes after each meal. Like he helped. So we all play a role because I don't want to be burnt out. Because it's very easy to be taken advantage of or to be taken for granted if you're the one always doing it. But when we switch off, when people are hungry, that makes everything more delicious. And so if you can
Yeah.
feed people who are coming alongside you, helping to prepare the meal, it's wonderful.
I love that. We've kind of moved to like potlucks for holiday dinners,
I love
everybody.
it.
And
Right?
the people that don't like to cook, they'll say, "Well, we'll bring all the drinks and, chips and salsa or whatever." One last question for you, Kathy. You wrote a book on decluttering, and I just wanna go there. I know that that's not part of your Sabbath soup book, but listen, all of us need to declutter. Give us a few tips for moms who are wanting to declutter.
I think this book and decluttering go perfectly together because it's all about limiting decisions and taking care of your future self. So, with decluttering, what I like to do is limit some of my decisions. I am not a minimalist, Becky. I am a maximalist. I love stuff around me. It makes me comfortable. But I only have things around me that I love, I use, or I would buy again. If I limit it to those three things, I have a house that is curated and loved. I spend about 15 minutes a day just getting things out of my house, whether it's garbage or saying, you know what, I've owned this long enough. It served its purpose. It needs to go to a different home. I spend about 15 minutes a day just doing that. And I had to teach my kids that I would use stories about Exodus. Like we trust God for the next meal. We trust God for the next thing. It's okay to get rid of things that you no longer use because you will have other things. And I've been a broke single mom, like broke. And you know what? God met me in every single need. Did I get met in every want? Not always, but sometimes. And so for me, it's not I had to realize that I had a very poor mentality, being afraid to let go of things. You know, Becky, my dad was a hoarder. I come by this honestly. I've had to break some of those chains and strongholds, but to understand I could trust God for all my needs really did help in a very practical way with the decluttering. And yeah, I could talk about decluttering all day. I'm kind of obsessed with it because it's changed how I live my life. And it really led to saying, I'm going to take care of my future self when it comes to Sabbath. So it's a beautiful connection.
Yeah, I love that, Kathy. And you actually have a podcast about decluttering.
I do. It's called Clutter Free Academy with Kathy Lip, and we talk about decluttering every day. And you're like, can you think of things to talk about decluttering every day? The podcast has been going for 10 years. Yes, I can.
And you, okay, wait, you do your podcast every single day?
I'm sorry. Did I say every single day? Whew. Every single week. I'm sorry. I apologize. No, I do my podcast every single day. But I do teach in some private groups every single day about decluttering. So it's been 10 years and we haven't missed a week about decluttering. Because, yeah, it's easy to let things build up in your house. And we're constantly talking about how do you make more space for yourself?
I love that so much. This has been such an incredible session, Kathy. I love you. I have loved interviewing you. Mamas, I want you to make sure you go out and get both her clutter free book and Sabbath soup because they go together, as Kathy said. And Kathy, where can our listeners get those books?
So if you go to sabbathsoup.com, we have also if you pre-order the if you order the book, we have 4 extra weeks of menus that we will send you right away while you're waiting for the book to come. So you can get started right away. And we have all sorts of amazing tips about getting dinner on the table, saving money, saving time, saving energy, because we all need to save in all of those areas, don't we?
Oh, we do. Hey, this has been wonderful. And ladies, if you missed all that, we will have it in the show notes. So it'll be easy for you to find that and for you to connect with Kathy. I want to encourage you to listen to her clutter free podcast. I think that would be awesome. And Kathy, would you just pray for our moms out there
Oh
who
my
just
goodness, I would love to.
desperately need rest?
Father, I am so grateful for the women who they're carrying so much. And God, I pray for the women who have partners who can come alongside them. I pray for rest for both of them. I pray for each and every person who is listening that there would be surprises of rest. There would be pockets of rest, and that we can plan to take care of our future selves so we can take care of all that you've entrusted with. God, we are so grateful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey, friends, thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Connected Mom podcast. And I hope you're going to join us again next week, where we'll have another conversation to help you connect with God, connect with fellow moms, and connect with your child. Join us again next week. And hey, if you enjoyed this podcast today, would you share it? And would you subscribe so you never miss another episode of the Connected Mom? Thanks for joining us.